Hey, happy Thursday, Bama fans. I am Matt Scalisi. Ben Flanagan is out this week, and I needed to get another legit Bammer to come on the show with me here. And it's Women's College World Series week. I knew of no better person to possibly bring on than Emily Pitek, the legendary Alabama softball fan. So first of all, Emily, thank you for coming on our show, Bammers, with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I just flew in Oklahoma City probably like 2 hours ago and getting ready to go to the action.
Loving it. So you're on site there. We're gearing up for the Women's College World Series, and I do want to talk about this year's team, which has been so fun to watch. I mean, they rarely are not fun to watch, but I would say I've particularly enjoyed watching these ladies in the postseason and before that too. Just a really fun group that we'll get into. But before we do that, for those who don't know, can you kind of walk us through your personal journey to becoming a Bama fan? And it started. I mean, you could honestly say that you were on the athlete side of it before you were a fan. If a lot of people don't know, tell us kind of your background there.
Well, I am a Yankee, so I hope nobody watching holds that against me. But I'm from Buffalo, New York. My mom is from Birmingham, Alabama. She's the oldest of 7 kids. They live in my grandparents live in Birmingham, and my grandparents are my best friends. So everybody can thank my grandparents for living in Birmingham, which is why I'm in Alabama. When I was looking to play college soccer, I knew I did not want to stay in Buffalo because of the cold weather. So I started looking, and Alabama came calling, and it's hard to turn down a full scholarship. So I came, and truth be told, I hated softball before Alabama, like hated it. Hated. I didn't think they were athletic. I thought the game was stupid. Like everything you could think, that's what I thought. So the way I started actually being an Alabama softball fan was I got hurt one spring and couldn't travel with my soccer team to an away game on our spring schedule. And the soccer field is right across the street from the softball field. So I literally was bored. So I walked across the street, I have no idea what game was happening, but walked in, and there were these boys who used to live next door to Stephanie Van Brakel Prothrow at the apartments they lived at. And they were called the Bentry Boys, and they were rowdy as heck. And they were getting it going. And that's just in my personality to support people, get crazy. You know, I'm the 4th of 5 kids, and you have to be a little crazy to get any attention in a family like that. So it was in my wheelhouse, and Murph invited that type of energy and environment at Rhodes. And I'm not quiet, so I think and I'm not shy. So it kind of a perfect storm for me to start really investing in that program. Got to know the girls on the team, and I thought, being a female athlete at Alabama, everyone supports football like crazy, and then the men's sports like basketball and baseball always get the support, and you always hear about them. But at the end of the day, the women athletes are doing the exact same work that the men are. So I just wanted to support my female counterparts, and luckily they're in a program that wins a lot, so it's a lot of fun to be around.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that aspect of it a little bit because, you know, I think there are in women's sports, you occasionally will come across a program, or, you know, let's say a handful of programs in each sport that have this huge, diehard, really intense fan base. And I think we've seen more and more of those over the last, you know, decade, 2 decades, really start to develop. But for people who've never been a part of that part of college athletics, and really, you know, maybe they only really ever catch these teams something like this week when the Women's College World Series is happening and the school they cheer for is playing in it. What's that experience like, and how would you kind of pitch that to other fans, maybe folks who typically the only athletic events they go to are maybe Alabama football games? Help to kind of describe what that atmosphere is like and what that vibe is to go to a an Alabama softball game, or I would even also throw out there the gymnastics team at Alabama has been a women's program with a really strong fan base for a long time.
Right. And actually, that's where the pink sombrero first started, was at
Okay.
Alabama gymnastics meet, at a pink meet. But I think the coaches of women's programs know that their athletes are ambassadors. And everybody's going to go to the money sports to see these incredible athletes, dunk a ball and do this stuff. But I found that the people who support women's athletics honestly develop relationships with the athletes, as far as like investing in who they are. Murph learned everything he knew about growing a program from Sarah Patterson, and she was just like the ultimate salesperson. And Murph is involved in that, but it's like when I was a soccer player, we would do clinics. We would work at elementary schools, and you literally give your time to people who want to come see you play. And I would get cards, like happy birthday cards, that a fourth grader has drawn. So I'm invested in them as well. And I think just the access that fans have more so to a women's sport is a little bit greater than a men's sport. And I think one of the biggest complaints of fans this year is that little kids haven't had the chance until recently, because some of the players are vaccinated and things are lessened. COVID protocols are lessened, but people haven't had the access to the athletes that they normally do. And it's been missed, and the athletes have missed it as well. So what's cool though, you talked about, if you're becoming a fan this week, great week to pick. Last week, great week to pick. SEC tournament, great week to pick. But it's the same program, the same athletes, the same environment, maybe a couple hundred less people in February when they start their Bama Bash tournament for softball as it is this week. And the program, like the coaching is the same, the players are the same. So if you can't find a ticket this past month to an Alabama softball game, buy a season ticket and go in February and March and April. Like, you will love it. And Murph always says, if you bring a friend to an Alabama softball game, I've just created 2 new fans. So it's hard really not to like them.
It is very cool. I love that sort of tracing the roots of it back to Sarah Patterson. I think that's a really cool thing that you point out there. I mean, I've been at this point, I've been sort of as a sports writer, I was covering Alabama athletics in like 2004, which, my gosh, that's a long time. But that's how my career started here, was covering women's sports at Alabama, and it was because people like Sarah Patterson went to extra effort. And look, I think it's a whole other discussion to talk about why it takes extra effort on that side. But that, I think, is so rewarding as a fan, as a sports writer, as anybody who pays attention to these programs. You really can get this sense of being a part of the program, being a part of the season for that team, that I think as much as fans love to celebrate when Alabama wins a football national championship, I think there's always going to be a debate, and this is a show where we talk about fan culture. There's always the debate about whether you can say "we" when you're celebrating a football championship. I think it's a little easier to say "we" when you're talking about the softball program or the gymnastics program or the soccer team, because your support counts more when you're investing in a program that they can see every one of their fans. They can hear every one of them.
Yeah, you make a great point. This week, actually, Cassie Riley, who was on the 2012 national championship team, called me and was almost in tears and was just like, I don't think you understand how much you helped us win that. Because when the rain delay happened in 12, us fans, we were dancing, and the girls saw that and they came out and they were like, we have nothing to lose. We have absolutely nothing to lose. And to that extent, in the SEC tournament game against Tennessee, we were losing when they took Montana out. And they came back, hit a couple runs, and our crowd just stopped for a little bit. And I got really upset, and I walked down the dugout, and I turned to everybody and basically said, like, get off your butts. Let's do this. But I said, we aren't being quiet until we win this thing. Well, Montana was in the dugout, and she messaged me later, and she said, I heard you say that, and I believed it. And so she went back in and threw a gem, and then we obviously ended up winning that game. But we're literally 10 feet from these players. So they hear absolutely everything we say, whether it's positive or negative, they soak it in. Same thing with gymnastics. If you're in the 10 troop, you're literally on the floor level with them. So it makes a huge deal. And there's some Bammers out there who, when things get tough, like to, throw in the towel. And that's the absolute opposite of what we should be doing.
Yeah.
When things are tough, that's when we get loud. That's when we change the momentum. We don't start it. We like literally change it. So
I think
it's
that's
really fun to see.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's, I think part of why it feels so unique is, college football in particular, which is how, again, a lot of us experience college athletics. It's become so big. It's almost really comparable to pro sports. And what you're describing, I mean, the closest thing that a lot of us can remember to that is high school sports, when we literally did know everybody on the team at the game that we were playing with. We're friends with all of them, and so you get this level of attachment to what's going on out there. That is really the spirit of what college athletics was for a lot of older folks here. It's probably less foreign for them, whereas people like you and me, who maybe by the time we went to school, these were already these huge empires of college sports that we were kind of getting used to. I have a question from one of our commenters, Emily. It's from Mark Shane Jackson. Wants to know, how many pairs of those overalls do you have that you wear to the games?
I'm going to show you something.
Oh man, we're getting the live answer.
No, okay. I have this is my bag I'm bringing to the game. There is one on the bottom that's my backup pair, in case anything happens to my original pair. In my original pair, my mom sewed it yesterday, because I've ripped it. But this is I've had these since 2011 or 12, and they are dirty. But I haven't washed them.
So these were game worn for the Oklahoma rain game that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and they're dirty. As well as my sombrero. When the girls won it in 12, every player and coach signed that sombrero. And it obviously was rain soaked, so it's just cardboard inside. So it's literally falling apart. And I really hope they win another one this year, and I can have all of them sign it, and we put it in Bryant Museum, and I retire that thing because it's about to die.
Nice. Well,
I have two overalls. Game Bibs makes them, so if anybody else wants to rep, this is not a me only thing. Please buy them. They're awesome. I think it's a great way to show your spirit.
You're encouraging it as a fan uniform. I like that. Let me ask you about this year's team, because obviously you've been there, you've watched these ladies, this particular group. For folks again who are maybe just coming to the team and will watch their first softball of the season at the Women's College World Series, what's special about this team? What are some? I mean, obviously, I think you're gonna be a fan of the entire roster, but for folks who don't know anything about this team, what's kind of the quick breakdown, the story of who this team is and why they have made it this far?
Murph says it all the time. They're gritty. And what I mean by that is they've experienced injury blow after injury blow after injury blow. And as someone who tore both knees, shoulder, and an elbow while playing, coming through an injury, whether to you or your teammate, is really hard. So they had Claire Jenkins go down. Actually, first they had freshman phenom Bailey Dowling go down with an ACL. Then they had starting shortstop Claire Jenkins go down with an ACL, her second. And she was kind of the leader on the infield of that team. And then you have Jenna Johnson go down with, I think, dislocated knee or something like that. And KB Sides gets injured. Bailey, she's a 5th-year senior catching. She is beat up, but they just keep going. And what's cool is Murph is always like next one up, and he preaches this mentality called mudita, and it's to celebrate someone else's joy and success as if it were your own. And I think when other players on the roster, you know, second and third in line in the depth chart had to step up and play, the person who they went in for was on that top step, yelling for them, cheering for them, high-fiving them when they made a good play defensively, going crazy when they hit a home run or a double or something like that. And this team just cares about each other more than they care about their success for themselves. And that's why they're successful. You have Montana Fouts and Bailey Hempel, who neither of them made the top 10 cutoff for National Player of the Year. And I'm a little upset with that, but you know, maybe that's motivation for them, but everybody on their team is like, that's who we're standing behind. And case in point, Lexi Kilfoyle went down with an injury for a while, and then she was in COVID protocol. She didn't pitch for a month, but Crystal Goodman stepped up and shouldered the load and honestly won a lot of games that helped put Bama into the position going into postseason where they were ranked 3rd nationally. So it's kind of in a sense the way Saban recruits 5-stars and they sit for 2 years, and then when it's time to go, they're making SportsCenter top plays. They're a multimillionaire because they're picked 3rd in the draft. But it's that type of athlete and just waiting for their moment. And when it comes, they're ready for it. They don't shy away from it. And I think there's a little bit of a chip on this team's shoulder because all you hear about is Oklahoma, UCLA, Florida, who didn't even make it out of supers. But this team has just been steady, and they believe in themselves, and they've just kept going.
Exciting to see them get to this point, and it's always I mean, I say this all the time. I've said it for years. To me, softball is one of, as a spectator, it is one of the most fun sports, maybe my favorite sport to watch and enjoy from home. I mean, I obviously love being at Rhodes. It's such a great atmosphere. But if you're watching sports on TV and there's a few different options and there's a softball game, I'm putting the softball game on. It's so fast paced. Yeah. It's so fun to watch. The crowd atmosphere is so fun. So I'm excited for it this week. It's a great time to be a softball fan. We get softball back in the Olympics this summer too. So really a lot of good stuff happening.
Yeah, and the U.S. national team is actually playing an exhibition tomorrow. So my best friend's Kat Osterman, so I'm actually going to go out and watch her out there. So it's a bonus, man. It's a bonus. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the score in this Oklahoma JMU game is, but before we got on, it was tied 3-3. So
wow,
you have David versus Goliath there, and softball proves if you have a good pitcher and you have some guts, you can win.
Awesome. Well, Emily, thank you again for joining us to talk about the softball team, and we will absolutely be seeing you and hearing you out there throughout the Women's College World Series. So have fun out there and pull them through. And thank you again for coming on and talking about it with us here on Bammers.
Absolutely. And if you are listening to this, if you have a chance to watch, tweet at them, tell your friends to watch, have watch parties. Just every vibe that's back in Tuscaloosa or Alabama or anywhere in the country, the girls feel it and they know it. And I think we can all ride this to a good thing next week.
Awesome. All right. Roll Tide out there, Emily.
All right. Roll